Hello, everyone. This is Marita, one who catches lightning, with the Path of Ish podcast, Walking with Our Shadow, where we share ancient indigenous teachings of remembrance, all so we can walk and learn how to walk a path of radical self-love. Hello, everyone. It's Marita, one who catches lightning, with the Path of Ish, and also one of the founders of Cuatro Manos y Cinco Volcanes Cacao Farm, where we make ceremonial cacao. I bring up that second part. It's not something that I speak a lot about in these podcasts, but definitely something that might be showing up more. And it's important to recognize that relationship that I have with earth, with farming. I do not live currently in an urban environment. And so if you are noticing how I relate and talk a lot about relationships to Mother Earth, it is because I have been fortunate to be able to find a place that can foster those relationships. It allows for the teachings that I have received to weave themselves into me in a different way. Now, someone reflected to me and said, Marita, not everyone has the luxury of living on a farm or living in open space, and that is true. And I kind of was taken a little bit aback when that was said to me, because I grew up in what was considered a commune that had a farm. So my relationship to that was very different. We grew food so we could eat. I do come from, though, big cities. I was born in Mexico City. And I'm fortunate to have been able to travel to different countries and continents. And each one has its own rhythm and way of being, just like culture, just like stories and how we relate. The reason that I'm bringing all of this up is that to give you a little bit of context into not just the many lives that I've been able to live and experience, but today we're talking about a topic that is very much alive and has been alive in me and is kind of really coming to a crashing crescendo lately. And that is patience. The thing that we are going to be talking about today is patience. So I hope that today you might be patient with me as we bring ourselves to the circle and take time. So let us first place ourselves in circleness. If you do not know what that means, go and listen to my other podcast, but we'll do a little here. We're going to ask Circle to hold us in this plática, to bring about its way of being that allows for inclusivity of who you are. Everything equal. And so with that, we then welcome Ik. Ik is the name, the word for wind. If you follow Mayan cosmology, and if you follow me on those other social media platforms where I talk a lot about Mayan cosmology, which is very directly related to circleness. And so as we approach circle, let us approach Ik, wind, breath. And as we focus on our breath, this exchange between ourselves and the plant kingdom, ourselves in spirit, we ask Ik to hold our 3-breath practice so we might begin. And as we do that, we are asking to be held by the circle. And many times, Ik, in many traditions, is the direction of the West. And I currently live in a place where the winds are east to west primarily. So with that picture of circleness and of breath and exchange that connects you to yourself and to all, let us take 3 breaths as we welcome patience into the circle. And so we begin. In and out through your nose. Welcoming your mind into this time and space. In and out through your nose. Welcoming your body into this time and space. In and out through the nose. Welcoming your essence into that time and space. And just allow yourself to be present. Now, this topic of patience is somewhat of a hot topic these days in the circles that I've been and that I am in. And so let's talk about it. Let us place it in a few places. Let's create context around what patience could be. And so I want you to just check in with your body, your mind, and your essence and ask it, what are the stories of patience that I have? What does the mind feel, think about patience when it hears that word? What does the body feel, think about patience when it hears that word? What does the essence think, feel about patience when it hears that word? When it hears that word. And that is the sound of the wind and rain coming down right now as we have this discussion. It seems wind heard our request to come and hold us and brought with it that hope of rain. So I'm very grateful that we are being honored with a release as we get into what might be an uncomfortable conversation. So let's talk about patience. As you know, we like to define things to be able to understand context or stories. If we go to the good old Oxford Dictionary, patience is described as the capacity, it is a noun, by the way, it is a noun. It's a noun, not a verb. It is the capacity to tolerate delay, trouble, or suffering without getting angry or upset. Oh, wow, look at this. Let's read this again. The capacity. How can you hold this? To accept or tolerate delay, trouble, or suffering without getting angry or upset. That is why in some language or in some societies, patience is spoken of as a virtue. The first known recording of this expression, according to well-known expressions on the web, is in Piers Plowman, a narrative poem believed to have been written by William Langland between 1360 and 1387. Around that same time, Chaucer wrote Canterbury Tales, where patience is a high virtue, but virtue can hurt you, as part of Franklin's tale came about. Okay, so virtue can hurt you. Wikipedia says that patience and virtue is a proverbial phrase referring to one of the 7 heavenly virtues, right? So now when we're talking about virtue, we're talking about morality. And even in that Oxford language, there's kind of morality attached to it, right? And it's a morality of a certain kind or type of people or belief system. So it might not be the same worldwide. I just want to put that out there. These 7 heavenly virtues were typically said to date back to Psychomachia, an epic poem written in the 5th century. So let's check in again with your body, your mind, and your essence. What are the stories coming up now when you hear patience? And because it's a noun and it's talking about capacity, right? It's not a verb, but yet it is an active and willing state of acknowledgement and of being. Yet, let's add a little bit more to this. How we measure our capacity of patience will be determined by our expectations and our value setting of things. What does that mean? Not only do we have a working idea of what patience is in the circle right now, we have to not just place it, but we also have to say, what informs it? What informs when things should happen, right? What informs the acceptance or tolerant delay? So here we're talking about delay. So it's this expectation that things should happen within a certain amount of time. So now I want to bring into the circle the word urgency and pair it with sense of urgency. Let that come into the circle and check in with your body, your mind, and your essence. How does that feel now? Just breathe when you need to breathe. You can always do these 3 breaths throughout all of this practice, throughout all your day, just a way to reset into the now. What am I feeling now? What am I thinking now in my body, my mind, and my essence? Sense of urgency. We all have a different sense of urgency because we have been informed of a sense of timing, of when things should happen. And we attach worth to it. value to it. Let's just look at an easy example and look at the service industry. I have been a member of the service industry for a very long time. I worked in restaurants and hotels for a very long time. And there was always this call to action, this sense of urgency to get people their food or their drink as quickly as possible. There was this expectation. There were even surveys done to rate a waiter or a bartender based on the timing of taking the order to getting that order out, and how people felt that if they didn't get their order, a drink order within 3 to 5 minutes, or a main food course order within, depending on the place, of course, right? Fine dining, very different than Jack in the Box. So there is that level of change of expectations based on the experience that you are walking into and deciding to become a part of. But yet, some people don't know those rules. And so if you are someone who has a sense of urgency of being able to order food from a drive-through and get it within 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and you walk into a place, into a restaurant where that is not the agreement, you might not know that. But that slow food movement was a change in agreement of how we were doing things. So let me get back to my original example. Main food orders should be out in 15, 20 minutes, depending on appetizers and things like that. This was way back in the day. And people would get graded whether they met that expectation or not. And this expectation, the gathering of this expectation, this sense of urgency, was something that was studied and became an agreement. And the agreement was, if you come and sit with us, we will take care of you. So the agreement, sometimes the sense of urgency, has this value attachment of being taken care of. Customer service, being taken care of. Why is this taking so long? Let me talk to your manager, right? The escalation, because something has not met your agreement, an agreement that you might have made and not let other people know about it. Your expectation for your capacity, right? Or your incapacity to hold and be present. Some talk about this sense of urgency or lack of patience as wanting to move the needle or move things along. Let's move things along. So here we have this energy of tolerance. That tolerance is based on expectations, which many times are not communicated, but sometimes society or culturally set, right? So right there, you know that if you are not clear and state your expectations, that you are not allowing for agreement to happen, and you're just pushing your way. And that could be because you were taught that the sense of urgency really was about worth and value. And so then patience has this charge, not just of temperance to it, but this idea that the now, who you are now, is not enough. What you are experiencing now is not enough. Because as we've discussed several times on these podcasts, We live in many ideas and societies of forward movement. Forward movement at a certain pace, depending on the societal agreements, means different things to different people. And for some, it means value, worth, and achievement, because then there is the value in the worth. Therefore, if we are not achieving this, if I'm not achieving a result in a certain amount of time, what you are telling me is not just that I'm impatient. No, I'm not going to agree to that. What you're telling me is I'm not worthy. Whew, let's breathe in. There it is again. That feeling of lack and worth, that fear of not being enough or getting it in time. And then you have people saying, well, I'm just going to do it myself then. Then we have division again. We have isolation. And that isolation occurs because no one took the time to discuss what expectations were. And we are being taught that tolerance sometimes is not a virtue. If I am tolerating how I'm being treated because I have a sense of urgency, and this becomes a boundary situation, then there's that wrapped in. We're not going to really go down that road, but I just wanted to present it. I want to now bring into the circle the struggle that I see of people wanting to learn in certain ways where that expectations of having access, or else they'll do it themselves, or having that sense of urgency sometimes does not fit into the culture that you are trying to learn from. And if you do not then have tolerance because you were not taught that, or not taught to have capacity, that it's okay to have more capacity, then it creates a lot of problems, especially if you are someone traveling or living or being in spaces that have a different value or cultural set to time, worth, patience, and sense of urgency and access. And I still, it's there. We still need to bring in that need of resolution that sometimes is so habitual that we have a tendency of pushing forward, thinking that we're doing so in a good way, but not respectful of someone else's relationship to time or to the solution or resolution that you are seeking. A simple example is the speed of larger cities, such as New York, with quote unquote slower cities, or island time. We had a moon ceremony the other day where I shared that there are still people around the world that do not use the Gregorian calendar as their main way of living in relationship to their life. Some follow just strictly a lunar calendar. Some have their own cosmology. And when I shared that, you could see people's minds just be like, what are you talking about? If I don't have 5 reminders and I'm missing my appointment, what I'm saying, if you are there on time, you're late, right? I've heard that so much. So let's just take this pause here. We've talked about how it's so important to take a sacred pause. Pausing is a way of patience. Patience is a way to be present. And the amazing thing about patience, it calls us to be present to our humanity in that given time and place, which includes our impatience, our lack of capacity. Whew, that was a lot. Let's check in. Let's do our 3 breaths again. Let's begin together now, taking that first breath as slowly as you can. Filling up all the way from your stomach to your lungs, to your sides, up all the way to your shoulders. Holding that breath, that exchange, and then slowly releasing it again. Resetting, re-welcoming our mind. Our second breath of our sacred Eek 3-breath practice, in and out through the nose, filling the belly, the lungs, the back of the lungs, all the way up to the clavicles, tippy top. Take another sip, hold. What is your capacity to hold this breath? How long can you hold it? Or are you waiting immediately to release it? Okay, now let it go. Even our lungs have to be taught and trained to hold more capacity. So many of us don't ever take a full breath. So let's take a full breath now. 3rd breath. Resetting, re-welcoming our essence into this time and place as we've welcomed our mind and our body. Take that breath now, in and out through the nose, in, all the way in. See how much you can hold it. What is your capacity now? Where's your sense of urgency and the worth associated? Okay, let it go. I brought that phrase that we hear so often in customer service situation when people's needs or expectations and capacities are not being met, right? The capacity's out the window and they're asking for more access to someone who can take care of this. So for me, access is very much tied to this conversation. And when it comes to the teachings that I have been taught and how I've been taught, that this is earned knowledge in a very different way than earned knowledge is in a Western dominant culture. Earned knowledge in a Western dominant culture has many times a set or a goal, clearly defined options, and this idea of growth and earning your knowledge by attending schools and being given books and access. But if you bring that expectation of access to circles like this, it will take you some time and it'll be a bit of a culture shock to learn how to learn or get access. And part of that comes down again to value. These teachings value the gathering of information in a very different type of relationship, which is not 100% human-centric. And many people who are not taught that value or who find it puzzling that you can't just go directly to a teacher or have access to them. I'm sure they wish they could call a manager then. But many times the teaching of finding a teacher or getting to a teacher, that road is teaching you about you. And that is as important as being able to have access to that teacher. And many people come then with the expectation that they will be answered in a way that will satisfy them. And many times I have discussions with people who say, well, Marita, why don't you do this? Or why don't you do that? Or why don't you switch this around and do this in your quote unquote outreach or business? Or can you do this? Can you do this outreach over here? Or talk for these people or do this? And many times I say to them, well, I have to go and ask. I have to go ask my teachers, my elders. I have to go ask permission. I have to go, and we go and get and have time and have counsel. I have more steps. And the reason is because I live in a way of community where my sense of urgency is very different. And it clashes a lot with I want this here and now. And why aren't you giving this to me? And within me, it clashes because I was in the service industry. I'm not saying that jumping from one world back and forth is easy, but the more that you do it, the more you can learn how to exist and change the capacity of your container. And maybe then learning that you have greater capacity, you can learn that patience, even though it's a noun, is a very active way of living in the present moment. Patience, as Henry Nouwen says, patience is living now. Patience is being present. And if we are present, we are truly experiencing a moment. We are truly living in that moment, not trying to rush ahead or look back with nostalgia. And remember, we love to time travel, us humans, back and forth. It's so hard for us to have the tolerance and the temperance and the capacity to understand the value and the worth of patience. Patience gives us, just like that sacred pause, perspective. It is a way to allow a different opportunity or way of being to be presented instead of rushing ahead with the solution that you already had in mind of getting, and not getting that solution in the timing or not looking the way that you want it to look, then means failure. There you go. You can go back and re-listen to a lot of the podcasts that touch on all of these individual things, but look at how everything is tied together. There is an amazing teacher, holder of truth, medicina, that helps with patience, with being present, with allowing the now, for you to be you. And one of those medicines I've experienced is cacao. And one is the Hawaiian fern endemic to the Hawaiian Islands of Kihei. This goes to show you that other ways of being and discovering those other ways of being, you will not always get your information from humans. You cannot just sit with humans. You cannot just sit in your mind, but you have to bring all of yourself, body, mind, essence, your beingness, for it to participate in your life. You have to bring in the possibility that lessons can be learned from the plant kingdom and the mineral kingdom, the bird kingdom and the fish kingdom and the mushroom kingdom, and the list goes on. And not just of ingesting them, but how they grow in relationship to the all, and how attached or non-attached they are in relationship to the all, including humans. Next time you have an opportunity to speak to a kihe fern or a cacao tree, and you approach in a good way, ask it, what do you think? What is your attachment or non-attachment to your existence in the world? What is your value set? What is your way of being? And what do you see as success? It will be very, very different answers, a different way and perspective of living. They hold a different capacity and expectation of that capacity or incapacity. They live presently in patience, in their wholeness. That does not mean that's true of all plants and trees. They all have their way of being on this world and in this planet. So now that we have all of these things in the circle, a lot of things came in today. I want to humbly ask Cacao and Kihei to join our meditation. I want to humbly ask Cacao for a root for this meditation. And it's beautiful to have these two together because Kihei does not grow in the soil, it grows on other trees. Not usually cacao trees, but we're asking them today to be in relation. I'm being asked now, Kihei wants to be in relationship with the tree that it usually grows in, which is ohia. So we are asking right now a lot of Hawaii, the big island, to hold this root for us. And yes, cacao is grown on the big island. It is grown in many places in the world. And it doesn't really itself care where it's grown. It just likes to grow. It just likes to be in warm, beautiful, volcanic soil. So with that, I just want you to take a moment to, as those are starting to come in, there's some agreements happening. We're still negotiating. I think I'm going to have to do a few offerings after this. Get yourself settled. So if you need to get up and shake, stretch, do that. Take a sip of water or take a sip of Cuatro Manos Cinco Volcanes if you have some cacao. I know that many of my students listen, and I know that they listen and have cacao nearby. So that would be a time to have a sip or to just have one of the discs, even better. Muy bien. So with those negotiations in place, they have agreed to come in. So let us make room for this cacao, ohia, and kihei, these ambassadors to the plant and tree kingdom, to enter in a way to teach us about patience. Now, if you do not know ohia, the ohia grows very, 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 very slow. And that is probably why it wanted to be here. We are asking these beautiful ambassadors to bring to the circle their relationship their capacity of being present, their capacity of patience. So as they begin to teach each one of us, let us offer them our breath, this exchange of ik. So let us begin again, in and out through the nose. Letting your mind offer this breath to these three wise, beautiful beings. And as it offers that breath, it is letting go of what it perceives life is, what being full is, what worth and sense of urgency is, saying, this is what I know. This is what I have been taught by humans and society. It is not working for me. Or maybe you don't know it's not working. Maybe you like it. Are you open to listening in a different way? Maybe an in and out through the nose. Allowing your body to offer this second breath, this wind ik. And see how ik in the wind moves and changes. How are they in relationship to wind, to breath, to strong winds, to no winds? This wind right now has brought us much needed rain. Thank you so much. And can your body learn where it is holding these stories and this tension of urgency? The first step is knowing and discovering. You don't have to choose to deal with it right now. You can just allow this unknowing of knowing to be present. This moment to allow patience, this sacred pause of being here now, to sink through your skin into your ligaments and muscles, your tissues, your bone, your marrow, in its own time. And our third breath as a gift of gratitude and thanksgiving. No, we're not done yet. In and out through the nose, gifting, having the essence, your essence, gift, Kihei, Ohia, and cacao. This gift of beingness, this want to be part of the whole. And this is where you can start to learn if your essence is the pushy one that has a sense of urgency. And again, if you've never had time to sit with your body, your mind, your essence, know that it takes time. They have their own sense of urgency that might be different from yours and might be based on whether you've listened to them or not, whether you have denied them patience. Let us stay here now and just sink into this moment and allow this moment to be the lesson. And as we slowly allow ourselves to be, remember that one of the gifts of this sacred pause, this patience, is the ability to accept that you might not have the perfect or best solution to something or someone. And by letting go of all of the stories that relate to you, acknowledging the fear that you have around your sense of urgency and worth, you are stepping in to the potential of something much more possible or more beautiful or more perfect than you could have even imagined or created. Because remember, we create from the energy that we know. So patience gives us possibility. With gratitude and thanksgiving, we thank Kihei, Ohia, and Cacao for being here. For Circleness for holding us. For this island of Hawaii for supporting us. As it teaches us to navigate new, the unknown, earth and creation of a reality. With gratitude and thanks to all of my ancestors and all of my teachers who teach me the possibility of patience. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And with that, take your 3 breaths again. This Eek 3-breath practice, in and out through the nose, giving thanks to your essence for being in this time and place. In and out through your nose. Thanking your body for being in this time and place. In and out through your nose. Thanking your mind for being in this time and place. Rub those hands together, create that beautiful, beautiful, beautiful heat, and reflect it back to yourself by putting your hands in your heart and sealing this time together. If you want to know more about Cuatro Manos y Cinco Volcanes Cacao and how to participate in one of our many circles, especially the ceremonial training that we usually hold around February and March every year, please drop us a line and we will direct you so you can join us in the circle. And we always have bonus classes that we usually start the class with, so if you miss that, you still haven't missed it because we will have recorded it for you. All are welcome. All are welcome who come in a good way, with patience, with gratitude and thanksgiving to you. May all of you be held this week with the possibility of wondrous things. Shade. Once again, it is with deepest gratitude that I bow to you for joining me on this podcast, this episode, this circle, this plática, this meditation, this remembering. I hope that you have stayed curious. I hope to see you in the circle again next week. So make sure that you like or follow. Until then, may you be blessed with abundance of peace and radical self-love.